Dr. Kang Deho stood at the edge of New Seoul's main plaza and felt the familiar chill that came with every human ruin. The empty city stretched before him like a ghost from another time. Buildings rose high into the purple sky, their windows dark and silent. Streets lay clean and perfect, as if people had just stepped away for a moment and would return any second. But they never did return. They had been gone for 847 years. Commander Park Sora walked up beside him, her blue skin gleaming in the alien sunlight. The Keltharian officer had seen many abandoned human worlds, but New Seoul always made her quiet. Something about this place felt different from the others. Same as always, she said, checking her scanner. No bodies, no signs of fighting, no damage to anything. They just left. Kang nodded and picked up a cup from a nearby table. The coffee inside had long since turned to dust, but the cup sat exactly where someone had placed it almost 9 centuries ago. A half-eaten meal lay on the plate next to it. Whoever had been eating breakfast that morning had never finished. The great mystery, Kang said softly. 12 different alien species have studied human ruins for centuries. We have found over 200 human worlds all the same. People just stopped being there one day. Park's team of soldiers spread out across the plaza, scanning buildings and checking for any signs of life. They would find nothing, just like every other expedition. The humans had vanished completely, leaving behind only empty cities and unanswered questions. Kang had spent his whole life studying this mystery. As a young scientist, he had believed they would find answers quickly. Surely such a large civilization could not just disappear without leaving clues, but after 30 years of searching, he was no closer to the truth than when he started. "Sir," called one of Park's soldiers from across the plaza, "we found something strange over here." Kang and Park hurried to where the soldier stood pointing at the ground. A section of the plaza's stone floor looked different from the rest. The stones were the same, but they formed a pattern that seemed almost like writing. "I have never seen this before," Park said, kneeling to examine the stones more closely. "My scans show there is something underneath." Kang pulled out his tools and began working on the stones. They came apart easily, as if they were meant to be moved. Beneath them lay a metal hatch with symbols that made his heart race. The writing was human, but it was older than anything they had found before. "This is impossible," he whispered. "These symbols are from early human history, before they even left their home planet. But New Seoul was built centuries after that." Park ordered her soldiers to help remove the hatch. Beneath it, stairs led down into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on as they descended, powered by some energy source that had waited centuries to activate. The underground chamber was vast and filled with machines that hummed with quiet power. Holographic displays showed star maps and strange equations that Kang could not understand. In the center of the room stood a device that looked like it could project images. "Someone wanted this to be found," Park said, examining the clean surfaces and working equipment. "Everything else in the city has dust on it, but this place is perfect." Kang approached the central device carefully. When he got close, it activated on its own. Light filled the room, and suddenly they were not alone. A human figure appeared in the light, tall and wearing clothes from centuries past. The image spoke in clear human language, but Kang's translator helped him understand. "If you are seeing this message, then our time of hiding is ending," the human said. "My name is Dr. Helen Chang, and I am speaking to you from the year 2387. We are about to begin the greatest journey in human history." Park and her soldiers raised their weapons, but Kang waved them down. "It is just a recording," he said, though his hands shook with excitement. The human woman continued speaking. "We know that other species will find our empty worlds and wonder what happened to us. You will think we died or ran away, but you are wrong. We chose to leave, but not because we were afraid." Images appeared around the woman showing human cities, spaceships, and star maps. Kang recognized some of the places from his expeditions. "For generations, our scientists studied the universe beyond our galaxy. We found signs of something terrible coming toward us, something that destroys everything in its path. We tried to warn other species, but they did not believe us or could not understand." The images changed to show dark space and strange readings that meant nothing to Kang. "So we made a choice. We would not abandon the galaxy to this threat. Instead, we would prepare. We moved our entire civilization to a place where we could build and plan without being detected. We left our worlds empty so others would think we were gone forever." Park looked at Kang with wide eyes. "They are still alive?" The recording continued. We have been watching and waiting. When the time comes, we will return. But we cannot win this fight alone. We need the other species of the galaxy to stand with us. The woman's image became more serious. The threat I speak of will arrive soon. When it does, you will understand why we made this sacrifice. Look for the signs. Energy readings at the galaxy's edge. Old monitoring stations coming online. Space itself bending in ways that should not be possible. The hologram began to flicker and fade. We left instructions in our other hidden vaults. Find them, prepare yourselves. And remember, humanity did not vanish because we were weak. We vanished because we were willing to sacrifice everything to save everyone. The image disappeared, leaving the room in silence. Kang stared at the empty space where the woman had been, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just learned. "Commander," one of Park's soldiers called from across the room. "I am reading massive energy spikes from the galaxy's outer rim. Something big is happening out there." Park and Kang exchanged looks. After 8 centuries of mystery, they finally had their answer. But that answer brought with it questions far more frightening than anything they had imagined before. The news of the human recording spread across the galaxy like fire. Within days, every major news network was talking about it. Some alien species panicked and began preparing their fleets for war. Others dismissed it as an old human trick or lie. But everyone wanted to know the same thing. Where were the humans now? Engineer Lee Taman watched the news reports from his hiding place on Kepler Station, a remote mining outpost on the edge of nowhere. His hands shook as he saw footage of the underground chamber on New Sol. After so many years of secrecy, the truth was finally coming out. Taman was one of the few humans left in normal space. His family had refused to join the Great Ascension 8 centuries ago. They believed someone needed to stay behind and watch, to maintain the hidden technology and wait for the right moment. For 37 generations, his family had lived in secret among the alien races. He activated his emergency communicator, a device his grandmother had given him before she died. The machine had been silent for decades, but now it crackled to life. "All watchers, this is Control," came a voice speaking in old human language. "Phase 1 is complete. Begin Phase 2 protocols immediately." Taman's heart pounded. Phase 2 meant revealing themselves to the galaxy. It meant the end of hiding, and the beginning of something much more dangerous. Across the galaxy, Ambassador Kim Nari received the same message in her diplomatic quarters on the Vithran capital world. She had spent 40 years building trust with alien governments while hiding her true identity. Most people thought she was just another mixed-blood refugee from the outer colonies. They had no idea she was fully human. Nari had been waiting for this moment her entire life. She gathered her secret files and prepared to make the most important diplomatic contact in galactic history. But first she needed to reach Captain Cho Woo-jin, the Keltharian officer who commanded the Confederation's most powerful warship. She had been watching Cho for years. He was smart, brave, and most importantly, he listened when others would not. If anyone could convince the Confederation to take the human warning seriously, it would be him. Nari sent an encrypted message to Cho's ship requesting an urgent meeting. She used diplomatic codes that would get his attention, but not reveal too much to anyone monitoring their communications. Meanwhile, on the bridge of the CNS Harmony, Captain Cho Woo-jin was dealing with the biggest crisis of his career. Reports were flooding in from observation posts at the galaxy's edge. Ancient monitoring stations that had been dead for centuries were suddenly coming online. Energy readings showed massive objects moving in the dark space between galaxies. "Captain," his science officer reported, "the readings match theoretical profiles for extragalactic vessels. But the size estimates are impossible. Some of these objects appear to be larger than moons." Cho studied the data with growing unease. He had always been skeptical of the human disappearance theories. Most military officers believed humans had simply been wiped out by some unknown disaster. But these new readings made him reconsider everything. "Sir, we have a priority message from Ambassador Kim Nari," his communications officer announced. "She requests immediate transport to our location. She says it concerns the human discoveries and the current crisis." Cho knew Nari by reputation. She was one of the few diplomats who could negotiate with all 12 species of the Confederation. If she thought this was important enough to interrupt a military crisis, he would listen. "Grant her request," he ordered, "and prepare the secure conference room." 3 hours later, Nari arrived on the Harmony. But she was not alone. With her came Lee Taemin and two other humans that Cho had never seen before. They moved with a confidence that seemed strange for refugees or mixed bloods. "Captain Cho," Nari said as they entered the conference room, "thank you for seeing us. I know this is unusual, but what I am about to tell you will change everything you think you know about this galaxy." She activated a small device that filled the room with privacy screens, blocking all recording and monitoring equipment. "My name is Kim Nari, and I am a full-blood human. So are my companions. We are part of a group that has been living in secret among your people for 800 years. Cho's security officer reached for his weapon, but Cho held up a hand to stop him. Something about these people made him want to hear more. "The recording your people found on New Sol was real," Taemin said, stepping forward. "Humanity did not disappear. We moved to a parallel dimension where we could prepare for what is coming." "And what exactly is coming?" Cho asked, though he was beginning to suspect he already knew. Nari activated another device, and holographic images filled the room. They showed massive ships moving through space, consuming everything in their path. Planets, stars, entire solar systems disappeared into the hungry machines. "We call them the Devourers," she said. "They are a machine intelligence from outside our galaxy. They consume all matter and energy to build more ships and continue spreading. They have already destroyed 17 galaxies that we know of." The images showed calculations and projections that made Cho's blood turn cold. According to the human data, the Devourers would reach the outer rim of their galaxy within months, not years. "Why should we believe any of this?" Cho's science officer demanded. "How do we know this is not some human trick to regain power in the galaxy?" Taemin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Captain, look at your sensor readings from the galactic edge. Compare them to our projections. The Devourer scouts are already here." Cho pulled up his ship's data and compared it to the human projections. The match was perfect. The energy signatures, the movement patterns, even the timing aligned exactly with what the humans predicted. "If this is true," Cho said slowly, "then we are facing the extinction of every living thing in the galaxy. What do your people propose we do about it?" Nari smiled for the first time since arriving. "Captain, what would you say if I told you that humanity has spent 8 centuries building the largest fleet in galactic history, and that we have technology that can fight these things?" "I would say that sounds too good to be true." "Maybe it is," she admitted. "The Devourers are more powerful than anything any of us have ever faced. Even with all our preparation, victory is not guaranteed. But we have a plan, and it requires the cooperation of every species in the galaxy." The room fell silent as everyone processed what they had heard. Finally, Cho spoke. "What do you need from us?" "First, we need you to convince the Confederation Council to meet with our representatives. Second, we need access to your manufacturing facilities and shipyards. And third," Nari paused and looked directly at Cho, "we need you to trust us even though we have been lying to you for centuries." Cho studied the humans in front of him. Everything in his training told him to arrest them and turn them over to intelligence services. But the data they had shown him was too accurate to ignore, and the crisis at the galactic edge was too real to dismiss. "I will contact the council," he said finally. "But I want proof that your people are really out there and really capable of fighting this threat." Taemin activated one more device. The room filled with images of massive human ships unlike anything Cho had ever seen. Fleets that stretched across light years, weapons that could crack planets, and defensive systems that seemed to bend space itself. "Captain," Nari said quietly, "humanity never left. We just got ready for war." Dr. Han Unji worked day and night in her laboratory beneath the surface of Titan Base. For 3 weeks, she had been decoding the complete human records that Captain Cho had helped recover from 12 different worlds. Each new file she unlocked made the situation more terrifying. The humans had not just detected the Devourers. They had studied them for generations. They knew exactly how the machine intelligence worked, how it reproduced, and most importantly, how it could be stopped. "The Devourers are not just destroying civilizations," she explained to the emergency council meeting via hologram. "They are learning from each one. Every species they consume makes them smarter and more dangerous." Around the virtual table sat representatives from all 12 species of the Confederation. Some looked scared, others angry, and a few seemed ready to flee the galaxy entirely. According to these records, The Devourers have consumed over 300 different civilizations in their journey toward our galaxy. Each time they study the technology and biology of their victims. They are no longer just machines. They are a collection of the knowledge of every species they have destroyed. Admiral Bai He-jin, the Zephyrian fleet commander, leaned forward in her chair. Dr. Han, what you are describing sounds unstoppable. How can any force fight against something like that? Before Han could answer, space around Titan Base suddenly filled with ships. But these were not Devourer vessels. They were human, and they were massive beyond anything the aliens had ever imagined. General Yu Jae-sung materialized in the council chamber, his image transmitted from the flagship of humanity's secret fleet. He wore a uniform that combined human military tradition with technology that seemed almost magical. "Honorable representatives," he said in perfect galactic standard, "I am General Yu Jae-sung of the Human Defense Force. We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but time is running short." The council members stared at him in shock. Behind him, through the view screen of his ship, they could see a fleet that stretched beyond the horizon. Thousands of vessels, each one designed for war against an enemy that could destroy galaxies. "General," said the Keltharian counselor, "your people have been hiding from us for 8 centuries. Why should we trust you now?" "Because," Yu replied simply, "we are the only thing standing between you and complete extinction." He activated a display showing the galaxy's edge, where the first Devourer scouts had already begun their advance. 3 star systems had gone dark in the past week, their suns extinguished and their planets reduced to raw materials for the machine fleet. "We have been preparing for this war since before most of your civilizations had spaceflight. We moved our entire species to parallel dimensions, where we could build and train without the Devourers detecting us. Every human child born in the last 8 centuries has been raised for this fight." Dr. Han felt her heart racing as she watched the tactical displays. The human preparations were beyond anything she had imagined possible. They had not just built ships, they had redesigned their entire civilization for war. "But even with all our preparation," Yu continued, "we cannot win this alone. The Devourers are too numerous and too adaptable. We need every species in the galaxy to work together." "Many of our people want to flee," admitted the Rovan representative. "If these creatures are as powerful as you say, why not evacuate to another galaxy?" Yu's expression became grim. "Because there is nowhere to run. The Devourers do not stop. They will chase you across the universe if necessary. The only way to survive is to fight here now with everything we have." Admiral Bai spoke up from her command ship. "General, what exactly are you asking us to do?" "We need your industrial capacity to build weapons and defenses. We need your ships to support our fleet operations. And most importantly, we need your people to accept human command of the war effort." That last statement caused an uproar among the council members. Several species had never submitted to outside command, and the idea of following humans, who had been hiding from them for centuries, was almost unthinkable. "You expect us to hand over control of our entire military to a species that lied to us?" demanded the Cytherian counselor. "Yes," Yu said without hesitation, "because we are the only ones who understand what we are fighting. Every battle plan, every tactical decision must be based on 800 years of study and preparation. There is no time to bring your military leaders up to speed." Dr. Han watched the debate with growing anxiety. Through her laboratory sensors, she could detect the Devourer advance accelerating. More star systems were going dark every day, and soon the main fleet would arrive. "Council members," she interrupted, "I need to show you something." She transmitted her latest analysis to everyone in the meeting. The data showed the true scope of the approaching threat. The Devourer fleet was not just large, it was incomprehensibly vast. Millions of ships, some the size of small moons, all moving toward their galaxy in perfect coordination. At their current rate of advance, the main fleet will reach our core worlds in 6 months, she reported. By that time, they will have consumed enough material from our outer systems to double their numbers. The council chamber fell silent as the reality of the situation sank in. They were not just facing an invasion, they were facing the complete transformation of their galaxy into more Devourer ships. "There is one more thing," Dr. Han said quietly. "The humans have found a weakness in the Devourer design, but exploiting it will require a sacrifice that I am not sure any of us are prepared to make." General Yu nodded grimly. Dr. Han is referring to Operation Final Gambit. It is our last resort if conventional warfare fails. What kind of sacrifice? Admiral Bay asked. The complete sacrifice of this galaxy, you replied. We would turn every star, every planet, every scrap of matter into weapons against the Devourers. If we can trap their main fleet in a dimensional prison, we can prevent them from spreading to other galaxies. But everything here, everyone here would be destroyed in the process. The council members looked at each other in horror. The humans were asking them to choose between certain death and possible survival, at the cost of everything they had ever known. Is there no other way? Asked the Altarian representative. We believe so, you said. But it requires perfect coordination between all our forces and a level of trust that has never existed in this galaxy before. Every species must commit everything they have to the fight. Any hesitation, any holding back of resources, and we all die. Dr. Han checked her readings again and felt her heart sink. The energy signatures from the galactic edge were growing stronger by the hour. Council members, she said urgently, we need a decision now. The Devourer scouts are accelerating their advance. If we do not begin preparations immediately, even the human plan may not be enough to save us. Admiral Bay was the first to speak. The Zephyrian Republic commits our full fleet to human command. One by one, the other representatives followed. Some spoke with confidence, others with resignation, but all understood that they had no choice. Humanity had returned from 8 centuries of exile to save a galaxy that had forgotten them. As the council meeting ended and the alliance took shape, Dr. Han continued her work decoding the human files. Deep in the data, she found references to technologies and strategies that even the humans seemed reluctant to use. Whatever was coming, she realized would test not just their courage and skill, but their willingness to become something entirely different from what they had been before. Admiral Song Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the massive command ship Eternal Vigilance and watched the final battle for the galaxy begin. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of 10 million allied ships spread across 300 star systems. It was the largest military force in galactic history, and it might not be enough. The Devourer main fleet had finally arrived, and it was even larger than humanity's worst predictions. Dark ships the size of moons filled the space between galaxies, their numbers beyond counting. As they advanced, they consumed everything in their path. Asteroids, comets, even space dust was absorbed and converted into more ships. All forces, this is Admiral Song, he broadcast on all frequencies. Today we fight not for territory or resources, but for the right of life to exist in this universe. Remember your training, trust your allies, and hold nothing back. Song was old, far older than anyone suspected. He had been one of the original planners of humanity's great ascension 8 centuries ago. While others had thought in terms of decades, he had planned for millennia. Every human action since the disappearance had been part of his careful strategy. Dr. Choi Yeon-seo worked frantically in the Dimensional Engineering Center, deep within the Eternal Vigilance. Around her, hundreds of technicians from 12 different species operated machines that bent reality itself. They were preparing humanity's ultimate weapon, a galaxy-wide dimensional shift that could trap the Devourer fleet between realities. Admiral, she reported through the communication system, the dimensional generators are at 90% charge. We need another 30 minutes to reach full power. You have 20 minutes, Song replied. The enemy advance is accelerating beyond our projections. On the front lines, Captain Mi Young led her integrated squadron through the chaos of interdimensional combat. Her pilots had finally mastered the hybrid ships, phasing in and out of normal space to strike at Devourer vessels from impossible angles. Dragon Squadron, attack pattern Gamma, she ordered as her ships dove toward a massive Devourer cruiser. Remember, fire at where they will be, not where they are. Her ships disappeared into Dimension 2, fired their weapons backwards through time, then returned to normal space just as their shot struck the enemy vessel 8 seconds in the past. The Devourer ship exploded in a brilliant flash of energy, but for every enemy ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Devourer fleet seemed endless, and their adaptive technology was learning from every engagement. Across the galaxy, the fortress systems that Oh Kyung-soo had designed were fighting desperately against the advancing swarm. Weaponized stars fired concentrated beams of stellar energy at the enemy, while converted planets launched waves of dimensional missiles. The Altair system, one of the first to be converted, came under attack by a devourer fleet numbering in the thousands. The 7 fortress planets worked together, their combined firepower creating a defensive barrier that seemed impenetrable. But the devourers had learned from previous encounters. Their ships began phasing into parallel dimensions, bypassing the dimensional barriers entirely. Within hours, the Altair system was overrun, its weapons consumed and added to the enemy fleet. "We are losing systems faster than predicted," O reported from his mobile command center. "The enemy adaptation rate is beyond anything we modeled." In the central command center, Coordinator Lim watched the tactical displays with growing despair. Red markers showing destroyed systems outnumbered green ones showing successful defenses. The galaxy was losing. "Admiral Song," he said urgently, "we need to implement Operation Final Gambit now, before we lose too many resources." Song studied the displays for a long moment. Final Gambit was humanity's last resort, the complete sacrifice of the galaxy to prevent the devourers from spreading to others. It would save the universe by destroying everything they had ever known. "Not yet," he said finally. "Dr. Choi, what is the status of the dimensional trap?" 15 minutes to full charge," she replied. "But Admiral, we are detecting massive energy buildups in the devourer fleet. They may be preparing something we have not seen before." Song's expression remained calm, but inside he felt the weight of 8 centuries of planning pressing down on him. Everything humanity had worked for came down to the next few minutes. "All fortress systems begin Phase 4 protocols," he ordered. "Convert all remaining matter to energy weapons. We are going to give the devourers more than they can consume." Across the galaxy, the remaining fortress systems began their final transformation. Planets cracked open, releasing their molten cores as energy weapons. Stars were destabilized, turning into massive bombs that would detonate when the enemy tried to consume them. The Rovan homeworld, which had finally agreed to evacuation just days before, became a massive antimatter bomb. The Zephyrian crystal worlds were converted into dimensional disruptors that could tear holes in space itself. Commander Nam Seung-ho volunteered to lead the sacrifice squadron, the ships that would stay behind to maintain the dimensional trap once it was activated. These brave souls from every species knew they would not survive the battle, but their sacrifice would save countless others. "Sacrifice Squadron, this is Commander Nam," he broadcast to his mixed force of human and alien volunteers. "Form up on my position. Today we become legends." The final phase of the battle began as Dr. Choi's dimensional generators reached full power. Reality itself began to bend around the galaxy as space folded in ways that had never been attempted before. "Dimensional trap is ready," she announced. "But Admiral, if we activate it now, we cannot reverse the process. Everyone still in normal space will be trapped with the devourers." Song looked around his bridge at the mixed crew of humans and aliens who had become family over the long months of preparation. They understood what was being asked of them. "Do it," he ordered. The galaxy twisted. Space folded. Reality split into layers as the dimensional trap engaged. The Devourer fleet, caught in the middle of their advance, found themselves trapped between dimensions with no way to escape. But the trap required constant maintenance. Ships had to stay behind to keep the dimensional generators running, knowing they would be trapped forever with their enemies. Commander Nam's Sacrifice Squadron took up positions around the galaxy, their crews working to maintain the delicate balance that kept the Devourers imprisoned. One by one, their ships disappeared into the dimensional fold, their final transmissions messages of hope for the future. "This is Commander Nam to all surviving forces," came his last broadcast. "The trap is holding. The Devourers are contained. Remember us and remember what we fought for." Admiral Song remained on his bridge until the very end, ensuring that every detail of the plan was executed perfectly. As the Eternal Vigilance was pulled into the dimensional fold, he recorded one final message. "To those who survive," he said, looking directly into the recording device, "humanity's 8th century plan is complete. The Devourers are contained but not destroyed. You must maintain eternal vigilance to ensure they never escape. Build wisely, live well, and never forget the price of freedom." When the dimensional storm finally calmed, the galaxy had been transformed. Thousands of star systems were gone, sacrificed to power the trap. Millions of brave souls from every species had given their lives to ensure the survival of the rest. But they had won. The Devourer threat was contained, trapped forever in a dimensional prison maintained by the sacrifice of heroes from every corner of the galaxy. In the aftermath, the surviving species worked together to rebuild what had been lost. The alliance forged in desperation became a permanent union, guided by the hard-won knowledge that some threats could only be faced by standing together. Dr. Han Yunji, one of the few original researchers to survive, established the Institute of Eternal Vigilance. Its mission was to monitor the dimensional prison and ensure that future generations understood the sacrifice that had been made for their freedom. The mystery of humanity's disappearance had finally been solved. They had not vanished because they were weak or afraid. They had vanished because they were willing to plan across centuries and sacrifice everything to save a galaxy that had forgotten them. And in the end, their patience and sacrifice had saved everyone. Scientist Oh Kyung-soo stood in the command center of the mobile fortress Eclipse, watching as entire star systems transformed before his eyes. What had once been peaceful solar systems were now becoming weapons of incredible power. Planets had been hollowed out and filled with dimensional generators. Stars were being wrapped in energy collectors that could focus their output into directed beams. The galaxy was becoming a fortress, and Oh was one of the architects of its transformation. "The Altair system is ready," reported his assistant, a young Keltharian engineer named Vex. "All 7 planets have been converted to fortress status. The star can now be weaponized on 30 seconds' notice." Oh nodded and marked the system as complete on his tactical display. In the 3 months since the alliance had formed, they had managed to convert 47 star systems into defensive positions. It was impressive progress, but they needed hundreds more to have any chance against the Devourer fleet. "Sir," Vex continued, "we are receiving requests from 17 more systems volunteering for conversion. But the Rovan colony in the Theta sector is refusing to evacuate their homeworld." Oh sighed. This was the hardest part of the job, convincing people to abandon everything they had ever known so their planets could be turned into ammunition. Many alien families had lived on the same worlds for thousands of years. Asking them to leave was like asking them to tear out their hearts. "Send a diplomatic team to the Rovans," he ordered. "Explain again that we cannot protect unconverted worlds. If they stay, they will die when the Devourers arrive." Across the galaxy, Captain Ryu Mi-young was dealing with different problems. She commanded the first integrated squadron of human and alien pilots, flying ships that combined technologies in ways that should have been impossible. The hybrid vessels could phase between dimensions during combat, allowing them to attack enemies from multiple angles simultaneously. But learning to fly these ships was incredibly difficult, and the cost of mistakes was high. "Red Squadron, maintain formation," she ordered as her pilots practiced combat maneuvers in the empty space around Jupiter. "Remember, when you phase into Dimension 2, your weapons will fire backwards through time. You need to aim where the target was, not where it is." One of her pilots, a brave Zephyrian named Kex, attempted the maneuver but miscalculated the timing. His ship materialized inside an asteroid, and Mi-young watched helplessly as both pilot and vessel were destroyed instantly. "All ships return to base," she ordered, her voice heavy with grief. That was the 15th pilot they had lost in training this week. The hybrid technology was incredibly powerful, but it demanded perfection from its users. Back at the training facility, Mi-young met with her flight instructors to review the day's losses. General Yu had made it clear that they needed at least 10,000 trained pilots to have any chance in the coming battle. But at this rate of casualties, they might not have any pilots left. "The alien pilots are having trouble adapting to dimensional combat," reported Commander Singh, a human instructor who had been fighting in parallel dimensions for decades. "Their brains are not wired for thinking in multiple time streams simultaneously." "Then we teach them differently," Mi-young replied. "We cannot afford to lose more pilots to training accidents." Meanwhile, Coordinator Lim Dong-hyun faced the biggest challenge of all, keeping the alliance together as the pressure mounted. From his command center on the mobile station Unity, he oversaw the coordination of 12 different species, each with their own military traditions and cultural priorities. The Cytherian fleet commanders wanted to fight using traditional honor combat. The Keltharian admirals preferred defensive strategies. The Zephyrian pilots insisted on maintaining their formation flying techniques. And the Rovan leadership kept requesting permission to attack the Devourers immediately, instead of waiting for the human battle plan. Coordinator, his aide reported. The Altarian Council is threatening to withdraw from the Alliance. They say the human demands are too extreme. Lim pulled up the Altarian complaint on his screen. They were protesting the requirement to sacrifice their 3 most beautiful worlds to create fortress weapons. The planets were considered sacred by their culture, and the idea of destroying them was unthinkable. Schedule a meeting with the Altarian representatives, he ordered, and get me General Yu on the secure channel. These diplomatic crises were becoming more frequent as the scope of the human plan became clear. Converting the galaxy into a weapon required sacrifices that some species simply could not accept. An hour later, Lim stood before the Altarian Council via hologram, with General Yu beside him. The alien representatives looked angry and desperate. "Coordinator Lim," said their leader, "your people are asking us to destroy everything we hold sacred. Our ancestor worlds, our holy sites, our most cherished colonies, all to be consumed by your war machines." "Honored counselors," Lim replied carefully, "we understand the pain of this choice. But if we do not make these sacrifices now, the Devourers will consume everything anyway. At least this way, the destruction serves a purpose." "You speak of purpose," another counselor said bitterly. "But how do we know this plan will work? How do we know you are not simply using us to save yourselves?" General Yu stepped forward. "Because, counselors, humanity has already made the greatest sacrifice of all. We gave up our entire civilization 8 centuries ago. We left behind everything we loved to prepare for this moment. Do you think we would ask others to sacrifice what we were not willing to sacrifice ourselves?" The room fell silent as the aliens considered his words. Finally, the lead counselor spoke. "If we agree to this, will humanity guarantee that our people will survive the war?" "No," Yu said simply. "I cannot guarantee anyone will survive. I can only promise that if we fail to fight together, no one will survive." As the diplomatic crisis played out, reports continued to arrive from the galactic edge. The Devourer advance was accelerating beyond all predictions. Scout ships were probing deeper into the galaxy, testing defenses and analyzing the fortress systems. O received updates on his mobile command center, showing that 17 converted star systems had already been attacked by Devourer scouts. Most had successfully driven off the attackers, but the enemy was learning from each encounter. "They are adapting faster than we anticipated," he reported to the Leadership Council. "Each attack is more sophisticated than the last. They are figuring out how our dimensional defenses work." Captain Mi Young's squadron had been deployed to defend the Kepler system when it came under attack. The battle had lasted only minutes, but it provided crucial intelligence about Devourer capabilities. "Their ships can partially phase into our dimension," she reported after returning from the fight. "They are using our own technology against us somehow. The scout ships we fought were using dimensional drives that looked exactly like human designs. The implications were terrifying. The Devourers were not just learning from the species they consumed, they were adapting human technology in real time." Coordinator Lim called an emergency meeting of all Alliance leaders. The situation was deteriorating faster than anyone had expected, and difficult decisions needed to be made. "The original timeline called for 6 months of preparation," he announced. "We now estimate we have 6 weeks before the main Devourer fleet arrives. All conversion projects must be accelerated, and we must begin implementing Phase 3 of the human plan." "What is Phase 3? asked Admiral Bay. General Yu looked around the room at the assembled leaders. "Phase 3 is the point where we stop thinking like separate species and start thinking like a single organism. Every ship, every weapon, every person in the galaxy becomes part of one massive war machine." "You are talking about complete integration of all our forces," said the Keltharian representative. "Our people will resist such total unity." "Then convince them," Yu replied grimly. "Because the alternative is extinction." As the meeting ended and the leaders dispersed to implement the new directives, O looked out at the transformed galaxy around them. They had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history: total cooperation between all intelligent species. But would it be enough to face what was coming? In the distance, he could see the first signs of the approaching storm. Space itself was beginning to bend and twist as the main Devourer fleet approached. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin,